this microphone? Can everybody hear us?
Go through the official channels. Call the
Yes,
meeting to order.
yes.
Okay, roll call. Lance. Here. Chad.
Yes.
Leah.
Yes.
I'm here. DJ is not here. Okay, so we're here to receive feedback on the April 7th, 2026 general obligation bond, including questions and answers. No actions will be taken here today.
Okay, so I'll start talking. It has to be a special board meeting so the four of them can be here together and talk about this with you guys. I want to thank everyone for being here. I appreciate the newspaper doing live stream right now on Facebook for people that can't be here. So my goal is to talk through the logic that we used to get to the point we are tonight. I'm going to talk about my time in 2.5 years ago since I entered the equation, the logic that was used to get us here. We have Jordan Smith, who is he's helped us with bonds here for a long time. He's going to talk about that and be available to answer any questions when I'm finished talking. And then at that point, as I see it, anyone and everyone can ask anything they want. So I will just say, in the fall, would have been the fall of 23, I came in July. In the fall of 23, two things were talked about a lot by this group, that we need a bond issue to address major transportation needs. We need a bond issue to address some facility needs that are things that are past due on being addressed. So that's a big task. So my logic, some of the first places you spend money are places that save you money and energy cost, whether that be doors, windows, insulation, heat and air units, that sort of thing. So the first piece that we talked about is, okay, inventory of current HVAC systems. Okay, do we have a picture of what we currently have, condition, age, those sort of things? That led us to, we brought on an engineering firm that went in and looked at that. And I'm going to share, you're going to see in a second that I'm not going to go into detail about this, but I want you to look at, so you have a spreadsheet here that has every heat and air unit in the district. And if you see at the bottom, you're going to see each of the sites. I could go through that. In that, the detail being the actual location, what it deals with, make, model, heating, air capacity. You see refrigerant type, and then any details they have. Okay, and you see the column about the year. And I'm showing you this as an attempt to show the amount of detail that we looked at and tried to go through. Okay, as part of that process, thank you, Taylor. As part of that process, they looked at electrical systems, plumbing systems. Plumbing, typically, they looked at supply water to make sure you don't have galvanized pipe. They looked at the electrical piece of that if you want to look at new systems, can your current infrastructure handle that, and look at that. They looked at some other architectural things as far as windows, things that might need to be replaced there. Questions about that specific problem? I just want you to see the amount of detail that we now actually have a starting place in my mind. Thank you, Taylor. So I'm going to take you to this slide, and this is just the age and number of units of HVAC systems. Okay, so I think, and I'm going to back up for a second and talk about me. My logic, if I'm sitting in your chair, I don't want to hear your sales pitch and how bad it is. I want to understand your logic, and I want you to show me the numbers. I'll figure it out myself. I don't care about anything else. So I think from that, I think you can understand that our current plan has been, and I'm not pointing fingers at anyone, you wait till there's an emergency, and then you try to piece it together, hope it doesn't cost too much money, and go from there. But what's going to happen when you do that, some of these school people that are here, when you have a classroom that quits, you may spend a week or two with no heat when you need heat, or AC when you need AC. Now, I understand you could have all new units and you're going to have issues sometimes. So we didn't feel good about that. We wanted a better plan than that. Okay? So we started that process in the fall of 24. That was delivered to us in the spring of 25, about a year ago, a little over a year ago. That starts much discussion about where do we go from here, okay? So, and I will just say this, so you have an old building that needs a lot of attention. Do you give it the attention, or do you tear it down and build a new one? Okay? What's the community's pulse or climate as far as the tax increase? What's the amount of dollars we feel comfortable going after? And then what can you do to have the most impact with the dollars you have and still have a plan for 50 years from now? Because I would just say this, I don't know if there's any hecklers in the crowd. There might be somebody that don't like one of these people, but I can tell you this, they all care about Woodward. They care about Woodward School, and they want better even beyond them. So I think our goal is to catch us up where we think we've been behind, and then get us on a path of how do we make sure that we're the Woodward that they're proud of. Comments from you guys about anything I just said? No? I'll keep going. Interrupt me if you would like to. So, a couple of things that guided us, and this interrupt me if I just say something you disagree with. I think we didn't trust the tolerance for a tax increase. Okay, this is where I'm going to say, I think we need more time and opportunity to earn the trust of the community for when we come back and ask you for a tax increase, that you're going to understand we're on the path to not be wasteful with that money. So, having said all that, looking at the facility condition studies I talked about, looking at previous bonds, we came with this list of things based on what we felt like with Jordan's consultation. I'll spit that out in a second. And narrowed that focus to be projects that we felt were the most efficient, effective way to spend the money. Obviously, when you're talking about doing some of the things we're doing, we're going to research and give the best estimates possible, but obviously some of those things may be adjusted or shifted. And I won't talk, I won't talk too much about the specifics of the project. I think you can see those. Again, you don't need me to sell those to you. If we have question and answer, I would love to answer any questions about what you're looking at there. Anything else I need to say before letting Jordan talk about bonds? Go ahead.
Well, I appreciate your time. My dad's old partner had a plaque on his desk that literally said, "Be brief, be blunt, be gone." And I want to get the information out there, but I also don't want to take more of your time than we need to. We've been working with Woodward Public Schools for 30 plus years now. I understand the history that you've had, the challenges. One of the things that I do want to point out, when we finally settled on this plan, I think we've looked at between 12 and 15 different options. I say that simply to say the board has taken this very, very seriously. It was not a decision that anybody came to lightly. I get to see and work with a lot of different school districts, and you can read faces and you can read body tension. And when you present numbers and ideas, you can tell when it's an easy decision and when it's an anxious decision. And you can be confident, but there's still some anxiety, there's still a lot of weight that goes into those decisions, and your board and your administration have taken every one of these decisions very, very seriously and very, very intentional. The bond issue itself, it's very similar to what we've done in the past. We've tried to plan as conservative as possible, so there's a couple of things that go into it. It's your tax base, which has been growing. It's been slow at times, but you are still growing, and we've taken a no growth outlook. So anytime we vote bonds, we're anticipating what our tax is going to be in 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And the board, we've decided, hey, let's take a no growth outlook. Let's say if we don't grow at all for the life of this bond, can we sell this and maintain our current tax level on our bond issues? That's what that decision was based off of. Interest rates, we've taken a conservative outlook as well, and we've said, what if rates go up over the life of this bond? Can we still sell those bonds in 2028, 29, 30 and maintain that flat tax impact? So we've taken some conservative steps in each one of those pieces. Right now, I sold a bond issue today. It sold for 3.24. As a benchmark, we're using between 5, 5.5 on this projection. So when we say no tax increase, what we're talking about is that millage rate for bond issues. We want to stay at that same commitment over the life of the bond, 18 mils. And that's where we were on the last bond issue as well. So we've taken that same conservative outlook. We were able to maintain that from the 2014 bond. We've taken that same conservative approach with this project as well. When you vote, those bonds are going to be broken up over the next 10 to 11 years. So we're not going to sell all 32 million up front. We're going to sell 3.2 million for the next 10, 11 years until we've sold all 32 million. After that, we don't have any more legal authority. We have to come back for another vote. But part of that, if you look at this list, it's going to add up to just a little bit less than that. We issue basically construction financing up front, but when we pay back that construction financing, that's the $32 million number. So if you're looking at this list and you catch that, a little bit difference, that's based on the interest rate. But again, we've estimated conservative in that regard. I think the most important thing is comparing kind of where we are now. If you want to pull up the list of surrounding districts. We always want to know, how do we compare with our neighboring districts? This is not an exact apples to apples. There's a lot of factors that go into this. But you can see Woodward on the far left-hand side in the red font, and you can see just a whole slew pot of neighboring competitive districts across the state. It doesn't take a lot of analysis to see Woodward is still really conservative, but also competitive. And we simply want to recognize, hey, how do we compare with our peer group? Because that's who we're competing with. That's who our kids are competing with on an academic level, on an extracurricular level, on a taxpayer, and on a resident level. So we want to have a little bit of information in that regard as well. A couple of things I want to point out on the bond. When you sit down to vote, there's this big lengthy paragraph. It's a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. It was written by lawyers in Oklahoma City, follows the Oklahoma statutes and the Oklahoma Constitution. That document, that ballot, is part of a 4-page document which itemizes all of those projects we were just looking at. That's what governs how the board can spend the money. It's driven by that document, but we can't have a 4-page ballot question. So that ballot is going to be kind of a little bit generic, but again, it's part of that 4-page document that specifies what they can spend the money on. There's 2 things that you may see, and it's also on the school website in the Bond Transparency Act. It'll be in the newspaper coming out next week as well. But there's 2 things that I want to point out because they sometimes cause a little confusion. There's a law in Oklahoma that says you have to identify 70% of the bond projects. So if you're reading these legal documents, if you can't sleep at night and you're trying to fall asleep, you're going to read these legal documents and it's going to say at least 70% of the money will be spent on. We've accounted for 100%. It's a statute. It says the minimum is 70, but we've added up 100%, 32 million, like I was saying earlier. At the end of that ballot, there's a statement that says at least 10% interest. That is a state maximum. That's not what we're selling the bonds at. Bonds are sold in a sealed competitive bid, low penny wins, period. You can have a bank that donates $100 million and 5 minutes later, if they miss that bond bid by one single penny, the school board does not have the legal discretion to choose a higher bid. So bonds are sold in a sealed competitive bid. As I mentioned, we sold a TOCA today at 3.24. So current market's in that 3% range. Some big districts are actually dipping below 3 right now. But that 10% is a state cap maximum. Again, we have to track with statutes. So there's a couple of things that show up sometimes in the documents that look a little funny, look a little bit off. It's because we have to track the statutes. It's because we have to follow the Constitution. We also have to submit this to the Attorney General for legal review before a single penny can ever be moved to the school district. So a couple of gee-whiz information out there. Again, they planned really, really conservative. They did not take the decision lightly. We looked at least a dozen different scenarios. I think it was closer to about 15 before they felt like, hey, this is the best plan to address our problems, to respect our taxpayers and protect them from a tax rate perspective, but to try and help move the kids and the opportunities forward for the community. I'm going to pause there for just a minute. Questions on bond issues, on Bond Transparency Act, maybe you've seen it on the school website, on interest rates. Hey, can you go over one more time that ballot language and why it's written the way it is? What questions can I answer?
Jordan, what happens if we've estimated it conservatively? What if the bonds sell cheaper than we've estimated? What if our property value goes up? What does that do for us?
Great. So we project this at 0 growth. If property values increase because things are bought and sold, you get a business that moves into town. Normally what we want to do is try and pay off the bonds as quickly as possible. We want to save on interest. Additionally, there were a lot of other projects that didn't make it on this project list. So you've got other needs that are going to need to be addressed at some point in the future. So normally every year when we get your new valuation, we take a look at it. Hey, we said no growth, you're up 5%. What kind of adjustments do we need to make to sell the bonds a little bit quicker but not exceed that 18 mil tax rate? So that's the first thing that we normally do. Interest rates will do the same thing. The interest rate impact is normally not quite as big as that growth. And when I say growth, I'm talking about the financial growth of your district, not your enrollment, but the financial value of your district. That's usually the single biggest impact. But we will adjust every year as we get those new numbers. Can we accelerate and pay off a little bit early? It may only be $50,000 one year. It may only be $25,000. But we will adjust as long as we don't exceed that tax rate that the board has committed to out of respect to the patrons. So, good question.
How does the statute read in regards to that kind of flexibility?
So a bond issue by law, you're voting for a specific dollar amount.
Mm-hmm.
How and when we sell those bonds, we have some discretion. The tax commitment is it's a political commitment. That's what we're committing to. Now there's a couple of things that are outside of our control. And sometimes people say, hey, my taxes went up. Our bond millage did not, but either reassessment by the county, if you built a swimming pool, that's going to change the value of your property. A lot of times it's insurance because it's escrowed in with your mortgage. And I'm not trying to pick on any one of those categories. I'm just simply saying there are a lot of things that are outside of our control on that tax impact. But the number one thing that we know is if we told the patrons no increase, we need to do everything in our power to maintain that. But we do have that legal authority. Hey, we originally said 3.2. We need to sell 3.4 this year to maintain that. And again, we do it again with that conservative outlook of, okay, if we don't grow next year and interest rates are up and we sell 3.4, can we still do that and maintain our tax commitment? Good question. Good question.
Could you explain a little bit about what everyone is seeing on this picture a little bit more?
Yeah.
And why Woodward is so low and how
Sure.
that comes about.
So really what we're looking at is just the tax millage rate, and we work with districts all over the state. The further west you go, a little bit better understanding of what a millage rate really is, but in simple
what
terms.
is, for someone that doesn't know what a millage
Yeah,
is?
millage rate is simply a tax rate. It's how much in taxes from a percentage are you paying. You've got some millage that goes toward your general fund. You've got some millage that goes toward building fund. Career Tech, County. These numbers specifically are the millage rate or the tax rate that's being paid for bond issues. And the reason we're looking at bond issues only, your general fund, your building fund, your county millage, those are normally pretty static across the state, meaning pretty much wherever you go, they're going to be very, very similar. Bond issues are the one where you really see a lot of difference and discrepancy. So what we're really trying to see is how do we compare from an investment perspective on bond issues specifically. Now, millage rate being low or high, I hesitate sometimes to say whether that's good or bad, but oftentimes people want to know what are other communities doing in the way of bonding debt, what are other communities doing in the way of bond support for their kids and for their community, for their facilities. Now, if you'll recall, the very first time we pulled this up, I said this is not a complete apples to apples because there's other factors that go into this. Some communities have a really, really big financial base. They may have a huge corporate partner in town that pays a large amount of taxes. In those communities, their millage rate may be down just a little bit, or it may be up just a little bit. But what we're really trying to simply show is, hey, from a bonding perspective, from a community perspective, what are we investing in the way of facilities, improvements, all of those things that we can't pay for out of general fund? What are we doing from an investment perspective for our kids, for our community? And how does that compare with what others are doing? And so that's what we're simply trying to say is just a quick benchmark. How do we compare with those around us? But these are tax rates that are specifically relating to bond issues.
So are you saying it's a safe assumption $18 out of every 100 is going towards the bond issue in Woodward?
It would be 1,000. That's the way a millage works. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So $18 out of every $1,000
Mhm.
is going toward their school, and that's it
On bond issues.
on bond issues.
Right. You have other
Right.
taxes
Yeah,
that you
pay
pay.
expenses and all the other costs.
Right.
That's just
Right.
for the bond.
Right. This is just on the bond.
Okay.
Now again, bond, you can't do it exactly because some places may have the rich uncle. The simple analogy that I've always said, if Bill Gates is your uncle, Christmas is awesome, right? Because you got a rich uncle. Some communities have a rich uncle that's contributing a lot to their community. Some districts don't. But, yes, how do we compare? In general, we're one of the lowest on the board here. Not trying to say that's a good thing or a bad thing, but from an investment perspective, you're not as high as a lot of other districts around you. And oftentimes that's what people want to know. Well, what's going on at Moreland? What's going on at Weatherford? How's Clinton doing what they're doing? And this is kind of the simplest, fastest way to compare. Maybe here's why some of those districts have or don't have some of the facilities that they do. Doesn't mean your kids are any different. Doesn't mean your community's necessarily any different. But it's simply that common question of how come so-and-so can do what they do? A little bit different tax structure. Good questions.
One of the things that I would add to that, as a guy that came from a little school district that has one campus, if you compare Woodward and Sharon Mutual there, it's very similar. And I understand they have two campuses, but in my previous life, I had one campus, one school, everyone's under the same roof. Where here, your millage rate is the same, except you have 6 campuses to deal with. And you can see, for that to be completely equal, the property value in Woodward's district would have to be 6 times that. And I can tell you that's not the case, you know.
Yeah. And then the single biggest factor, and I appreciate the way you presented it, when you start looking at those heat and air conditioning units, and you realize, I think the number was 160 heat and air units that are over 15, 16 years old. To an extent, at the end of the day, this is a little bit irrelevant. You still need to solve the problem. So this is helpful as a comparison. It's helpful as a, do we really need to do something like this or not? But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about that project list and if it makes sense to address the project list or not. And that's really what the crux of a bond issue is about. We have a list of projects that we feel like need to be addressed, that we feel like the kids in the community deserve, would improve? Do you agree or do you disagree? And what we want to do is give you as much information as possible so that when you sit down and decide, yes, I agree, we need to address these problems. Or no, I think we can go a little bit longer. No, we don't need this list of problems. Or no, we don't need this list of improvements in these projects. But that's really what we're trying to do, is give you as much information as possible so that when you make that decision, it's as informed and as educated as possible. And you can make that decision however you want. We respect that right. We just want to make sure it's an informed decision.
So can I ask what our millage rate would be if we decided not to put a Band-Aid on this with the 23 million? And just decided to build a school outright and eliminate a lot of the problems that are there? Does anybody have those kind of numbers?
Maybe the best way, it would be such a drastically different cost impact. I don't think you could do a school that would address all of those problems for the same cost.
Well, I understand.
I understand your question. So one of the things we looked at, well, I'll just say this, what would it cost to replace what's there? Or an idea that's been thrown out. So if we looked at a centralized elementary school, okay, what would that cost to build? So I think the number we came to was about 40 or 45 million for that.
So you're looking at double, so that would put it at is it a safe assumption that 18 number then would move to 36?
Correct.
Pretty close.
Okay, so with that, what you've done is then, in that case, you've solved 3 of your problems, or 1 of your problems, depending on where you went. What about the other places? So are you going to wait 10 years to address that? Do you understand?
Yeah, I'm following you.
Yeah.
I was just curious.
It's a great question. It is, and I think that this crew, there's been much discussion about that. Yeah, because you're right. What if our millage rate was what if we did what Shattuck's doing?
They're at what, 39?
39.
So
everything we want to do happens twice as fast.
Right.
In that sense.
My problem is like with anything, you take an old beater and you put a new motor in it, you still have an old beater. And then you have brakes, and then you have blah blah blah, and then you have blah blah blah. So instead of putting is it 23 million? I keep forgetting that number.
So at the end, 32.
32 million. Dyslexic, sorry about that. Instead of putting a $32 million Band-Aid on something, I know that the general popular probably don't want their taxes raised. Those are probably the people that don't have kids in school and see the struggles. Where if we could replace our high school and put a better education and replace our track so we can actually have a meet, have decent facilities for our ball players, because our baseball team and softball team have junk for locker rooms. I mean, I would much rather pay a one lump, take it, hit it, go, than be broke down for 32 million this year, 5 years, another 20 million, and then another what? We finally decided to break down because it's beyond the repair. Because I think I Googled, and it's just Google, so I do apologize for my source, but it said somewhere between 150 to 200 million would give us an amazing school. Now, I don't know if that's far off, but I'm just pulling off of what I Googled. For a middle, not a large town, but a community our size. And to keep hitting a bond issue and not raising the taxes, I think I would rather just rip off the Band-Aid per se and go with it. Obviously I don't speak for everybody in the town, so I do apologize.
No, this is very interesting because we've had this discussion over and over and over the last 2 or 3 years, and we all would like that very, very much, but it's a matter of what we thought the community would support. Because in the last 6, 7 years, we failed 3 bond issues with minimal tax increase, maybe a 6% tax increase that addressed just a portion of these things.
Right.
So at this point in time, we struggled with this over and over and over again, but we decided to go ahead and go with what we felt like would be hopefully a win for us. But there's another step on down the road that we are definitely going to be looking at in the next year or two. And part of your discussion addresses this. I mean, it's definitely in the picture, so.
Well, and you look at that list of things and there's nothing that is off the charts, not necessary. The only thing I saw that I would never do would be the $1 million for kids is electronics, just because I believe pull the computer out and give them a textbook. I've always believed that. I don't disagree with the whiteboards and the stuff for the teachers, but I think kids should go back to textbooks. They're smarter. They learn to look up stuff. It's not Google. Kids play on, what is that, Snapchat, and use that Chat GPT to cheat. All these things you can't do if you have a textbook in your hand. So, but no, that's kind of what I was wondering is, it's kind of frustrating to see.
We're just looking for a place to start.
And I get it, and all the things on the list were amazing. I mean, because
Yeah.
I do see the teachers, when they say the kids' air conditioner's broke and blah, 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 and I do know the guys that work on them, and I see their trucks there all the time. So, I mean, it's not like that's not a good thing, what you're doing. I'm just thinking, at some point in time, we gotta rip this dang Band-Aid off and go big. And I feel sorry for any taxpayer that doesn't wanna vote to increase a better school, because if you're a doctor moving to this town, what are you gonna do? You're gonna bring your kids here, they're gonna look at the school and they're gonna be like, hell no. We're gonna go ahead and live in Moreland because it's got a brand new building, or we're gonna live in Shattuck and commute. Because their schools, the buildings look amazing, they're all up to date, they're modern. So how do you get new people in and build your revenue up if you're selling a 1985 car for $32 million? Just doesn't make sense. I'll get off my soapbox.
But I think collectively, we didn't think that there would be we would muster the support of any sort of an increase, which it's not apples to apples, but whenever you talk about, for the county, 4/10 of a penny over 15 years or whatever it was, there was quite a bit of discussion, and that's what, $4 $4 a thousand. We all grew up here, all of us. I mean, minus Rusty, he's okay anyways, but we all grew up here. We all have kids have gone through here. By the time anything happens, my kids will already be gone. So, I've had one that graduated, one's a senior, one's a seventh grader before they get to experience the Woodward that I remember or that I had. It's going to be somebody else's children.
So that tells us one thing: you need to have more kids.
We're finished. But we would like to, ask for the world and have it delivered, but we're quite frankly gun shy of the time and the effort and the same conversation for no support.
So, just a question: can you not soft ballot people, put out a public opinion poll and say, "Hey guys, we could do this for 32 million, or figure out the numbers, of course, I apologize. Say for, a 3.5% increase, we can have help bring in new industry." I can sell that. I can sell that on my house. I can be happy with it. Now, when the city does other things around town that I believe that are absolutely ridiculous, I would rather see that money get pumped into the school.
We did something similar to that at the prior bond vote that we had. We had public surveys. We surveyed the school personnel. We had
Stuff in the
meetings.
newspaper.
Yeah, we had
Focus groups.
several focus group meetings. Got the opinions of people, what we felt like people would support, and it still fell by maybe 48% yes. And this has to pass by 60%.
Yeah, it has to be 60%
So
yes.
it was
I
disappointing.
understand your hurdles and your boundaries.
I'm gonna
I feel bad about that.
pick on Jordan for this question, but to answer your question, so if this passes and we come back a year from now and say we want it passed by so much, we want another $32 million. It's going to raise your taxes this much. Can we do that?
You can. Eventually, we do run into some limits that we just can't ask for anymore. Whether they would pay a 2 billion % tax increase or not, we do reach some statutory limits on how much we can actually sell every single year. And that is part of the challenge. I was trying to pull up and I can't get connected to my network because I think we did look at some pretty significant tax increases. And in a short summary, I think the hope with this plan, if I can say it that way, and not to speak on your behalf, but I think the hope was done is better than perfect. And we've got to get something done.
Well, my problem with it is I'm thinking the majority of the people that are voting no, this is just my opinion, probably rent a damn house anyway and aren't paying property taxes.
Yeah.
So that's my problem. They shouldn't be able to vote unless it should come in your tax ballot is what it should go.
Yeah.
When you get your deal. Because to me, that makes no sense. If you're just riding the bill, that's like collecting welfare and getting steaks while I'm paying for hamburger. Makes no sense to me.
Sure.
So,
I appreciate the board because I have been involved with a little bit of this, and we were asking for, you not to buy a medium pizza a month as opposed to getting a bond issue passed, and we couldn't do it. And I think that we need to get used to winning bonds, and maybe the community sees when we win the bond and look at it like a win.
well, because the buses are amazing.
They are.
So the kids love them. I know they love them. I know they're not going to go on a field trip and break down because I've been that guy that was on the bus. No, we had to stop to pick up another one. When we went on, I think it was the 6th or 7th or 5th grade field trip when we went to the zoo, it was a nightmare. So, I mean, I've been there, done that, but I just don't understand the thought process, but I'm getting it. You guys believe you're going for 32 because we can't get the, let's just call it 200, and that's a false number to replace the problems.
It's still in our
It's
future.
still,
Yeah.
it's in the long-term plan.
You do have capability, even with this plan, you have capability to come back. As a general rule, we could probably about double this if the patrons wanted something like that. So you got quite a bit of flexibility and capability to come in and do a pretty significant chunk. 150 million, I can tell you, we can't get there. 120 million, if that's what the project cost was, there's no way we can get there. Tax increase or not, you're gonna hit your statutory limits. But you do have some good flexibility, some good capability at any point in the life of this bond to come back and add more to it. The question is how much and what is that tax impact? And then ultimately, what is 60% of the voting public gonna want? Are they gonna support that or not? And again, I think we're, not to put words in your mouth, but I think the hope was, let's get something done. Let's get started. Let's get going because our needs are only continuing to grow. So.
There should always be a bond in place. You should always say yes to bonds. We have great bankers in town who love to buy school bonds, and it's a no-brainer. Yes to bonds and school bonds.
Jordan, would you explain kind of what happens if on the path that we're on, what happens whenever you say if we don't pass, say we have a couple more failed bonds, what happens to our millage rate, and then what happens to our borrowing power and stuff like that?
Sure. So the short answer, you got one more year with your transportation, but this 18 is going to go to zero. All of your other taxes stay the same, but that 18 drops to zero. So to go back to 18 is going to be an increase again. The biggest factor is all of those projects and all those costs, we all know what's happened to inflation in the last 5 years alone. But even if let's just throw the last 5 years out, let's jump back to 1999. Construction costs were a fraction of what they are. All of those improvements were a fraction of what they are. Heat and air unit didn't cost $25,000 a piece. The single biggest factor is the cost of those things is only going to go up. Now you can go back to 18. It's going to be an increase to go back up. It's not a no tax increase. Everybody's got to make budget adjustments because you're going back up. Even though it's the same level, you're going back up. So from a personal perspective, everybody's got to adjust. But then it's not 32 million in 2 years. It's 36 million or 38 million for the exact same list of projects. And the other problem is all of those other improvements that didn't make it on this ballot. Well, those have continued to compound as well. So your costs are not going down in any way. Even with some growth, Woodward's growth, I think your long-term average is about 4%, but inflation is averaging about 8%. So every year, whether you're doing bonds or not, you're still losing buying power. That's why so many of these districts are up, because they're trying to catch up. to that buying power. They're trying to catch up to that cost of inflation. They're trying to catch up on the cost of a new heat and air unit, much less new construction. Is that a kind of?
Yes.
Okay. Good questions though, good conversation. Other bond questions I can answer? A lot of times when we get into meetings like this with numbers, I think it's important to study that project list. Walking away from a bond side, it's $32 million. It's a 11-year program. It's the same taxes that we're already paying. And it's also the same conservative outlook that Woodward has used for years and years and years. So we've done everything that we can to protect that taxpayer trust. And we've been able to maintain that over the years as well. Nobody has a crystal ball, but we've used that same conservative outlook that we've always used. And historically, even when things turned down, we were still able to maintain that commitment on our taxes. And I simply want you to understand that's the same outlook we're putting on this bond issue as well.
And I would jump on that and say the salesman side of me is this group of people is not going to want to look at you and tell you, and you have to hear that they said something that wasn't truthful. That if they told you your taxes weren't going to go up, that's what they meant. The other thing I would say about school bond issues, it takes a supermajority, it takes 60%. It's the one tax that you have a choice about, really. And it's the one that we're going to tell you exactly how we're spending your money. And the other thing I would say about it, everybody here that would like to do what you've talked about, it impacts them. They're paying taxes too. Other questions? Because I could jump on the soapbox with you. I could. Yeah.
It's just frustrating. I mean, it really is. I don't see why people don't look through the eyes. Maybe I have blinders on, but I'm not a wasteful person because we live on a budget. And so I would much rather hit this one time and be done, but I don't want this to draw away from the fact that I think the $32 million bond issue is a great idea and it needs to happen. It needs to fix it because obviously the belief is that our community's willingness to take a tax increase won't pass, and that makes me sad to live here. Because I've seen those kids walk through, and I've seen what they have to put up with, and I've seen parents donate pizzas so that the kids can have a dinner because they've had 4 games that they've had to cheer at. I've seen all the things that we shouldn't have to see just because there's not enough money there for the basketball team to eat out or something like that. I mean, when I was in school, when we were in sports, when we wrestled, the whole team stopped, and we never paid for anything. We ordered what we got, or we got given what we got, But it's just ridiculous to see their lack of wanting to get better. That makes me sad. So I hope they change and vote yes, and we can get a new school too down the road. Sorry, I'm getting off my soapbox now.
Hey,
We all agree we can.
yeah, we'll hire you as a seller.
I mean,
It may not pay very well though, so.
I can sell a ketchup sandwich to a nun wearing white gloves, so.
Other questions about anything we've talked about or haven't talked about?
Something I just want to say, I hope people realize too, and I think everybody in here pretty much understands this, but for those people that don't have kids in the school system or they don't have grandchildren growing up in this community that think that this doesn't affect them, they're entirely wrong because this affects our entire community as far as industry, healthcare providers, recruiting doctors, the growth of Woodward. Your school system is the heart of the community. So if they think this is not an important vote, they're very misguided. So even those people that don't have kids in the system, grandkids in the system, I just strongly encourage them to get out and vote. Don't just assume it's going to pass either. It's got to pass by 60%. So please, everybody, just spread the word and get out and vote.
I have one more question. I probably have about 50, but it's okay. It says on there that it says gym renovation, seating, railing, audio and flooring. Is that for the basketball gym then? Can we take a little bit and maybe upgrade the middle school bleachers so that they don't fall through like they did a couple of years ago when they made them all sit down?
This is talking about both.
This ball.
Yeah. Now parts of that would be, the pull-out bleachers at the high school gym.
Okay.
That's one piece of it,
Yeah,
which
this
isn't
is
apples and apples,
Gotcha.
but yeah. That's, you see the part about sealing it, the railing specifically in the middle school shop.
And there are more things,
Yeah.
we know of more things,
Oh,
but,
God.
I mean,
Pretty sure.
these are just what,
I'd like to see a track on there so we could host track events.
there's a lot.
Yeah.
How in the world would you make that main track, please? Because it's almost,
Mm-hmm. You can't host a
can't host it.
district or regional or anything like that.
No, and if you looked at that track, because you sit down at the football field and you see what the cheerleaders are standing on and that part pulls back and you see the chunks out of it, you're like, how do they even run on for practice? I think it'd be a cross-country track more than a track. I promise.
Well, we know what's
There's so many people sitting at home.
Yeah.
All these
You're telling the
voters,
truth.
all these voters that are gonna vote yes or no haven't been out to see what the school system looks like because they don't have kids in school anymore. And I don't know, maybe you show a walkthrough of how the conditions actually look. And I love the videos that were posted on Facebook about the kids asking what they had thought and what their improvements were. I thought that was amazing. That's what you gotta do, right?
I thought it was amazing because they're all just, like, to me, they'll tell you the truth.
Yeah, why would they lie?
Yeah. It's
So,
good.
and if the kid, you're fine. I was gonna say, if the kids can see it,
Yeah.
then by God, the parents should see it, and grandparents, I guess, sorry.
So we have a question online, and I don't know if he heard Jordan earlier, but Matt Hyman says, what's the cost to build new? Are there state matching funds if we can pass a bond for a new school? Renovations tend to snowball quickly, especially on outdated buildings that are probably up to code or maybe not up to code.
So there's not gonna be any state matching funds. This is gonna be supported by us. I mean, I think that question ties right back into what we talked about a little bit before of where do you balance tearing down the old to build a new? None of us are opposed to that. It's just, we felt like this was the next best logical step. The next step after that, I think, is where you have to look at what you're talking about.
So I'm on the finance side, but we're rounded enough to hear pretty often. Right now, construction estimates typically range between $350 and $400 a foot for new construction. You've got 639,000 square feet that we're touching on this. I haven't even done the math, but I can tell you that $300 a foot, 180 million range. Yeah, again, I get we're not redoing 639,000 new construction, but as a comparison, $350 a foot.
And like he said before though, then they're only fixing one problem in one building versus what did you say we have 7? Six. Oh yeah, because the ECC is probably golden, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I would say this, okay, so that's a great question. But the ECC was built,
It's our newest one. Really. My son was a first grader out there.
Yes.
This year it was first.
Yeah.
He's 22, so yeah, he's been up since 22, I think.
That has been a long time, wow.
What's the newest one?
It's the newest,
well, and I was just gonna say, we call it the newest one, but it is the newest one, but it's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that you're
We moved in 2013.
2013.
Yeah.
There you go.
If you wanna look at that, I mean, he's sitting here, he's the oldest person I know. And he went all the way through the high school. It was a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, and a senior. It was brand new. He was the first class to fully graduate from the high school. And it's the same curtains that he graduated with.
Yeah.
And he is 100 years old.
Well, it's the same restroom at Cedar Heights that I used in 1982.
We We do
Well,
hear,
83.
kind of
we've
goes
seen
back
them
to
all.
Same-
Same
same
in high
thing.
schools, and
one of the common themes that I hear from a lot of architects, and again, give me a little grace, I'm on the finance side, but the common conversation is normally when you hit 60 to 70%, that's when you start to flip the new construction versus renovation. Simple math, and I did punch it in at 350, you're talking about 223 million. And again, we're not building
That's just one building.
630, right,
That's just one building.
right.
Well, I
But
think
the-
what
the
you used
dollar-
was the total.
Right, what I'm saying is,
Yeah.
we're touching 639,000 square feet, if I'm reading your statistic
Mm-hmm.
right, with this bond. So you're touching a massive amount of space.
Well, let me correct that. That doesn't mean we're going to renovate every square foot that we have. There's some spaces that have been kept up that we're not going to touch. That's a total in the district. So I guess that was important for me because you think about $32 million is a lot of money. Unless you've done a bathroom remodel at your house or you've done some construction yourself and you apply that square footage or number of restrooms, it's not a big number anymore.
And I think that's really the crux of it is new construction, even at half of that, 100 million comparatively, you're getting a lot of bang for your buck with this particular package. I understand different desires, don't necessarily disagree with them. Again, that cost efficiency was, I think, the ultimate goal.
Well, the whole goal is getting yes vote out. And the yes vote, we know back with the others that continued to fail, we had an environment where we had 10 people every day at one and 8 over here that came in and had coffee with us twice a day. And every single one of those individuals, what was the median age, would you guess, at those tables?
old.
Older than him. And they were an absolute no vote. They couldn't wait to get up that morning to go vote no. And our goal here would be to get the yes vote out. Because that's all they have to do for that day is go vote.
So, if it doesn't pass, what is the idea in the back pocket? Because obviously, all of the stuff on the list doesn't look like it's, frills are, adding on. It looks like basic necessities. What is our goal to fix the air conditioner units if it passes? Are we just SOL and sit there, same thing we've been doing, fighting the whole time?
Yes.
Emergency money getting pulled out of
The
different
district,
budgets.
this is the only way for this stuff to get done.
There's no ace in the hole.
No, I get it. I was just trying to get
And the
that
thing
part
is
out.
too, is what I would like to mention is there has been a lot of the good things that the newer things and facilities and different programs, Woodward has some supporters in the community that are tremendous and they give all the time, to the softball fields, to the baseball fields, to the, I would say dance and, there's people that support tremendously. We just need it as a whole, as a community. Because those people will continue to do it, I would imagine, until, maybe not until their kids are gone, but Woodward has had a good support of people. We just need everybody.
You see, they just put those new backstop bumpers in on that softball field. I saw a picture of a group of guys that installed them and they were donated by somebody.
Yes, there's a lot of donated,
The
there's a
sad
ton
part
of
is-
donated stuff across the district.
The sad part is somebody had to donate those to have them there. It's a nice thing they did it, but it's a sad part that it had to be done instead of just already looking like that. So,
Well, and as you said, up here, it's all the things that are needed. If it didn't pass, I would be in trouble. I believe that's why we went this direction, to get these things fixed. And then, but we wanted to go big or go home, bond, like you're saying, let's get some new things. But if it did fail, we'd be in trouble. So let's get this passed and then let's try to get working on that plan that we all want. Let's get some newer schools.
Sell ketchup sandwiches.
That's right. I mean, there's no reason we on that one, we're 18 millage points. I mean, we're one of the lowest around us. Our kids deserve to.
yeah, so that's why I was getting at is the fact that we are almost the lowest in You even look at some of the smaller towns and theirs was higher. Granted, they probably don't have to spend as much money. Is that how that chart worked? So like for instance, Shannon Mutual is a very small
Yeah.
school.
So that chart, it's a snapshot. It's not all encompassing, because you've got districts that their valuation may be much higher, but then they also just built a brand new high school. And I don't know every single district what their project was on that list. I get that from a state form that I get.
Oh, okay.
Again, that snapshot is simply trying to give you some perception on what are other communities doing in the way of bond investment. What are other communities doing in the way of paying extra taxes in order to address different needs? Some communities are saying, hey, we're willing to pay 3 times the tax rate in order to fix problems within our community. Not a criticism, just simply trying to say, how do we compare with our peer group? And again, the reason you can't take that all-encompassing, they may have different needs than you have. So it changes.
Well, Jordan, since you are on the finance side of it and you do get to work with these other schools, the ones who do triple, what are you hearing that they're doing within their community to make a good case? Because they can't be any different than us. Our great-grandparents built the structure. Our grandparents continued on. Our parents did the same. And now it's our turn.
Sometimes it,
You didn't ask me the question, but I'm gonna jump in and give you my perspective of coming from a little place. Okay, at some of those places, they understand if the school dies, their town is gone.
That's right.
Okay, and so they have that sort of ownership. I think we have some people here that don't have that attitude and should, because it's true here too.
Yes,
It
it
is.
is.
yeah, there are other issues that can come into play with each one of those communities as well.
Yeah.
They've had a leaky roof in the elementary for 25 years. And it doesn't matter if they got to pay 10 times the tax rate. They finally decided enough is enough, and we're going to fix it. So that's kind of the mentality that comes along with that. Ironically, what we see is some of those districts specifically, they can't build fast enough. And even though they're the highest tax rate around, everyone's moving into the district because of what they're offering. And people say, I'll pay the extra tax if I can participate in those facilities and in those programs and in those improvements. So the irony sometimes with bond issues is, yes, you have to pay, and the tax is even higher. But oftentimes, the old Kevin Costner, if you build it, they will come. And I'm not trying to promise population increase, but that seems to be a pretty common denominator. You build new facilities, people move in. They're willing to pay a little bit more. Now, I want to say this in full respect out of those who disagree. I understand everyone's financial situation is different. I'm not trying to say everyone should absolutely have the same mindset and say, well, I can afford $10, you should afford $10 too. I want to be respectful to different financial situations. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's about your children and addressing the need and the problems for your children. And I think that's really what it comes down to. And what you see is some districts say, in order to address the problems or the restrictions or the challenges that our facilities have, we're willing to pay more. And that's really all we're trying to give you is some kind of comparison. How do we compare with our peer group? What are we offering our kids? How are they doing what they're doing? They're paying more. They're paying a higher tax rate in order to provide those opportunities and those offerings.
And we as a board, I can tell you, think that Woodward is the star of Northwest, of this area. I think that I personally think that we should have people want to come here for athletics, for education. But we don't even have, we don't have anywhere near the newest facilities within 30 miles. For sure not 60. So it's hard to be attractive.
Can you can you let everyone know who can vote? If anyone in Woodward County, like you don't have to have a kid.
It's anyone in Woodward Public Schools that's registered to vote. They're eligible. Now you vote at your regular precinct voting location. So wherever you normally vote, that's where you'll go to vote. But any registered voter, and I understand frustrations about do they own property, do they not? That's not the system we have in place. The system is if you're a registered voter in Woodward Public Schools, you can vote on the bond.
In schools or Woodward?
In the school district, you live within the school district.
Yes, if you're a registered voter, not that you're a patron or have students, but if you live in the Woodward Public Schools boundaries,
Gotcha, okay.
and you're registered to vote here, in other words, well, I'm still registered in the district where I was 5 years ago. As long as you're registered in the Woodward Public Schools district to vote, you can vote.
I have another question. Renita and Kenneth King says, is there an order of what repairs happens first? Basically, what is the most critical?
Yes, would be the answer to that question. And I think you saw the list. I don't know that I want to try to jump in that, but I think common sense and logic for me, if you're looking at this number right here, you've got 60-some heat and air units that are 30 years old or older. That's a great place to start. You have some single pane glass windows, that's a great place to start. Now, while that list of priorities is not necessarily going to be the list, because you run into, again, my common sense and is going to tell me that if you have a place that you've got 4 heat and air units that are 40 years old, and you have one that's 25 years old, while we've got the crane there, why don't we take care of it too? Is that, I don't know if I've answered the question, but I think we could keep talking, but I think we get into the weeds of even what we've decided is the most important, what's the most important. I think we have a plan to address those things that I think, to me, is based on common sense and logic from a conservative approach.
And some of that will come with your timing of students are on campus, safety issues. There'll be a little bit of I'm stepping out of my box.
You can't accomplish all of these things overnight. So some that might not be the highest priority might happen first just because of the logistics of that.
Yeah, I would see a hard time getting 286 AC units.
Yes, right. Even if you decided to replace them all, first of all, can you have access to equipment, and then is there a contractor big enough to handle that? Or again, there's some logistical things there that aren't going to happen as quickly as we'd like.
You sent those things out for bid as well, and those go to companies that handle schools, or is it locally done, or how's that process go?
So how's the process work? So each component of that would be competitively bid. So yes, you're not eliminating local.
So all comers can go and go bid.
Yep. There'd be some legal requirements that you would have to be
Insured and insurance.
all those things.
I asked that because of social media.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys coming. Appreciate your questions. If I don't know how long I'll be superintendent at Woodward. I hope for a long time, but if we have town hall, you have to be here.
Sorry.
No. Great questions.
Conversation.
Really, it is. It's great questions. Anything else before we wrap this up?
Can't stress that 60% more than anything, you have to get to vote. Get out and vote. And bring a friend.
When the bond does pass, are you looking at a specific time frame to start?
Okay. So money will be available July. That'll be when we first start getting our money in. Some of these things, speccing them out, if you have to have architectural and so forth for.
There are some components of this that would require an architect. Okay, so that's going to take a little time. And then after that, you would be at the mercy of competitive bidding laws.
Yeah.
So
There's a decent chance you're not going to see anything happening for probably 4 months at least, 5 months, 6 months. And then again, some of those timing components, what's the supply chain allow? What's the, how do we need to work around the kids to maintain a safe environment?
Right, like if
I would
you,
speculate you're probably gonna see some improvements within 4 to 6 months. And it may not be that it's the most important necessarily, or the most dire, but it was also easiest to address in a given window.
so would it be easy to say it'd be a whole lot easier if it passed and you say the funds are available in July? Why don't we wait until next summer to bang out all the high school AC units?
Everybody's
out of class.
We will use
Middle school
we will
because-
use logic to do some of
Yes.
those things.
Yes.
Yes. So, and I guess one of the things I would go back to in the auditorium, hopefully we can add lights and sound
Curtains, yeah.
and curtains while school's going on.
Waterproof.
What's
Is
that?
it waterproof now?
Great question. Yes.
'Cause that was a terrible picture I saw.
As quickly as possible, but some of it does take time.
I have one other order of business if we're finished talking about this. We're finished talking about bond issue. Okay, I'm gonna talk about her for a minute, and she's not gonna like this at all. Okay, so, our regular board meeting that was on Monday will be her last official board meeting. She did not refile. She served for 10 years. I probably shouldn't say this because I'm on social media, but I'm saying it anyway. I've described the Woodward School Board in this way. There's one intelligent, classy lady, and then there's 4 guys like that.
Exactly right.
And it's interesting, the influence she's had on all of us. We appreciate you.
He's gonna miss you too.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's been, I told these guys Monday, I've been trying to cry. I don't need my cry next week. This has truly been one of the most challenging but most rewarding things I've ever been a part of. And it's just been an honor serving with these men, and I have an incredible amount of respect for them. We've been through a lot of tough meetings together and had a lot of decisions we've had to make, and it's been an honor to work with them, and it's a little bittersweet. And Rusty, we're just so happy you came on board a couple of years ago and made the transition from Lady, and anyway, thank you all. That's it.
Okay, this meeting's adjourned.